Welcome, Horror Hereticals. This is the second of the two double build reviews for this week, and we have the Y chromosomal version this time round. It is very apt. We begin with director Justin Tipin's him. The colloquial term him was used these days to describe a sportsman who is destined to be the next big thing, especially in the highly coveted sports like American football in this case. The story surrounded a young boy, Cameron Cate, who had been avidly supporting his sports idol Isaiah White, winning the equivalent of the Super Bowl in his fictitious world. With aspiration and intense grooming from his father, Cameron would follow the footsteps of White and was at the precipice of becoming his heir apparent. An unexpected attack resulting in Cameron's football career in jeopardy, and it was a real heartache for Cate, his family and his entourage, until he was encouraged to go through a rehabilitation program from his childhood hero Isaiah White, who was considering hanging up his boots at this juncture and wanted to see if Cate was a suitable successor in the eye-catching quarterback role for his illustrious team. From the onset of this rehab camp, located in some god-forsaken spot in the desert, Cate would see his idol White meddling with animals' cadavers like it was some twisted hobby. However, the rehabilitation camp was run in a very professional manner with an indoor football field and the right analytical and medical team, all in synchronicity to resurrect Cate's fitness and designed a program to make him the prime football player he was destined to be. White would put him through some physical torments and even brought some football players who Cate thought was meant to help him with the conditioning, but in the end served as pawns to push him to conquer his physical barriers in a very abhorrent manner. Meanwhile, White's wife, looking like Anne Hathaway's character from Alice in Wonderland, was not subtle with how she wanted Cate to go through some social media work and starting to display misdemeanor off the training field. Ultimately, this was yet another horror feature of a protagonist unknowingly stumbling into a malicious environment with people maiming him or her to achieve something for their own benefits. It certainly reminded me of movies like Shutter Island, A Cure for Wellness, and Midsommar. And of course, the recently reviewed The Home. The marketing of the movie made it felt like a sports movie as well, but it felt more like a commentary of the modern sportsman and how fame and fortune have brought him nothing but misery in the world of drugs, scandals, controversies, and unsolicited entourage who wanted to leech from his wealth and influence. There might be some inside jokes to illustrate how unruly some sports teams and their upper echelon would be with their disregards with their athletes. That would be the real horrifying element even before looking at the supernatural essence being written into the plot. Director Justin Tipin, who co-wrote the screenplay with Skip Bronkel and Zach Eggers, had carved a name in television and had made a movie in 2016 called Kicks. The screenplay for him was in the blacklist for the year 2022. And for those of you who do not know what is the blacklist, you can watch my review for Borderline. The screenplay was bought by Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions, and in collaboration with Universal Pictures, Him was greenlit for production with Tipin as the director. Tipin gave the film a contemporary feel with a decent soundtrack to beat out the sports culture that young people are infatuated with. The visuals were eclectic, but it worked for the story, but overall the plot was not captivating enough and was difficult to grasp your attention for the entirety of the movie. Perhaps more inclined towards the viscera unleashed in small dosages throughout the movie. Marlon Wayans headlined the cast, and after seeing his wacky persona in memorable features like White Chicks, and of course those scary movies with his brother Sean, it can be a bit hard to treat him seriously. The actor though has shown some dramatic chops, with Darren Aronofsky, Requiem for a Dream being the most eminent. As Isaiah White, Wayans needed to crank up the charisma and had to turn on the switch to unleash the threat at a whim, very comparable to what Michael B. Jordan did in a movie like Sinners. Wayans was up for the task, albeit not very memorable. In the role of Cameron Cate was Tyreek Withers, who I would have last seen in that god-awful I Know What You Did Last Summer as one of the unlikable young people. As Cate, Withers possessed the intricately sculpted physique that you will unanimously believe could be the next sporting god. Like Wayans, he was adequate in his role, meandering through the craziness that were bestowed on him without giving a truly gripping performance. A couple of supporting casts were seen in recent horror movies. In Julia Fox as White's creepy wife was in a very negligible cameo in Steven Soderbergh's Presence, and comedian Tim Heidecker last seen in Y2K as Cameron's obnoxious manager. I suppose putting Jordan Peele's name in prominence was to draw audience who enjoyed his brand of horror filmmaking, but the poor reception and reviews scared casual viewers away. For me, him is truly middle of the road, with interesting take of the bane of glamour of a modern sportsman, and is awarded a 6 out of 10. In an alternate dystopian version of United States of America, a totalitarian militant regime governed the land with an iron rule as the powerful country was suffering from economic hardships much akin to the Great Depression in the 1930s. Although it was not specified that the regime censored television content, one highly regarded annual event was a long walk with a male participant selected to represent each of the 50 states, with the victor netting a windfall which will guarantee their family getting a better standard of living moving forward. Of course, the rules of the titular long walk was draconian and ruthless. There will be no rest points and contestants had to keep walking until one will survive, as those who fell below the stipulated speed will be executed in cold blood. Our protagonist Ray Garrity represented the state of Maine despite the utmost reluctance from his loving mother. He will be joined by many young men, most of whom without any familiar tattoos like himself, including Peter, who he struck the strongest bond with. So the movie started like Lord of the Flies, meeting Squid Game, with the contestants forming cliques, pitting against each other and crafting strategies, but eventually when the walk get longer, all this meant nothing as you battled your own endurance and physical conditions to not fall out and face the threat of being killed on national broadcasts. As audience, we will wonder if you have to walk for days and food and water have been catered for. What about issues like answering nature's call? How about sleep? Or when the legs started giving away, or even the footwear getting worn out? Every single thing had been addressed, and things were certainly arduous for Ray and his fellow contestants, and having the military force kept hounding you when you are at the edge of your limits. We got to know that Ray joined the contest with some personal demons he needed to vanquish that involved the detestable Major, who had been on the front and center of the whole event and shouting rhetoric and unlikable words to stir the emotions and fighting spirits of the contestants, much to the distaste from the people involved. As you grew affection towards certain characters and starting to root for them, you have to brace yourself for the gut punch when the various characters starting to drop like flies. I went to the movie on recommendation from my hiking buddies who told me of the concept of a movie with people walking like their lives depended on it. I had zero idea who wrote the story and who directed it, so when the credits rolled, I was like, I should have guessed it. The concept felt like the Hunger Games, but without the contestants killing each other in a battle royale manner, but outlasting each other, although whoever survived the final leg cultivated a level of companionship even when they started on the wrong footing with one another. It was natural that we have Francis Lawrence, who made all the Hunger Games movies, as well as highly rated action horror flicks like Constantine and I Am Legend. The Long Walk is a movie that emphasized on putting human characters through some heinous travails with a lot of stomach-churning bodily harm on screen. So it was not hard to link with scriptwriters J.T. Molnar, whom we have last seen in his movie Strange Darling in 2024. We have a protagonist who represented Maine, and in a world so bleak, humanity was badly tested, like in a world we had seen in movies like The Mist or the series Under the Dome, and engaging unwilling contestants in a game of life and death like in The Running Man. I was not remotely surprised to see Stephen King providing the source material. However, one major surprise for me during the credit roll was the bearded Major was a cold and calculated villain, not unlike one of the most memorable cinematic villains in Darth Vader from the original Star Wars trilogy. Little did I know that it was the actor that portrayed the offspring of Vader, Mr. Mark Hamill himself, assuming the role of the abhorrent villain. While I could not identify Hamill even until the end, one actor that was very recognizable from the start of the movie was Judy Greer, playing the mother of Ray, and had been taunted by seeing his only son being involved in the game, which was almost certainly a death sentence. Gone were the days when Greer were remembered as the crazy employee from the Blue family who serially flashed at Michael in Arrested Development. She had molded into a serious actor in dramatic movies, and her performance added to whatever movie she was cast in. There was a scene in which Ray, near the brink of losing his sanity from the arduous walk, which he also had an insurmountable vendetta simmering within him, had seen his tearful mother at the town they passed by. He could not control himself but to apologize to his mother profusely for being selfish in volunteering for the walk, when it meant she could lose all her close family members. Many people online had highlighted that was a gut punch of a scene. Speaking of gut punch, the demise of various characters at the climatic end was not easy to sit through. None was less impactful. Kudos had to be given to the unknown young cast, including Cooper Hoffman in the lead role of Ray. The son of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I had last seen in Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza, anchored the lead role effectively, but it was David Johnson as Peter that I was captivated with from the moment he emerged. Johnson, who played the android Andy in Fede Alvarez's Alien Romulus, gave a memorable performance as Peter, who was an honest, compassionate and reliable friend and truly a pillar of strength for all his compatriots. As the audiences reckoned about Peter's miserable life and his pure intention to win the walk that would help him change the trajectory of his life in an instant, he was still willing to go the extra distance for the likes of Ray. Johnson is a brilliant actor, now 2 in 2, and I hope we will see him involved in more interesting horror features that he could continue to display his acting chops in. Gut punch was definitely the keyword I have coming out of The Long Walk, and being in the military, this type of brotherhood in the most tempestuous time was not something foreign to me. Francis Lawrence was able to draw the human condition under such horrible situations, while Mona was dexterous to throw spanner into the works and mess with you. Of course, Stephen King's story always transcends time and age. This is not a conventional horror movie, but it was cringeworthy in many moments that would scar the audience. The Long Walk is a 7.5 out of 10. Across the years, not just in 2025, there will be some surprise horror movies that will pop up and intrigue me, so please subscribe to this channel to see when I would manage to capture the next elusive surprise, and also help click the like button. It will really help. The double bill reviews of Brian Bertino's Vicious and Michelle Garza-Chavera remake of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle were the female half of this week's review, so which one do you prefer? It is really unfair how some people gain fame and fortune, like Cameron Cate, by just doing some touchdowns on the field, while others had to walk till their souls run out.